Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. Back today to talk about my winter TBR, the books that I am quite keen to pick up between the months of December to February. As always, this is not a strict TBR. Some of these books are books that I currently own, and so obviously I want to prioritise. Others are just ones that it would be nice if I picked them up either at the library or if I bought them. Some are yet to be published, though most of these are in fact backlist books. So without much further ado, I'm going to get into the books and start with books that I currently own. The first one, and definitely the biggest one on this pile, is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This I would say is her most famous book. Even though I know that Piranesi is really nipping at this book's heels, this is definitely the book that put her on the map. And yet, despite the fact that it is so lauded, I'd never had the strongest urge to pick it up, and especially because it is so big, that can be a little bit intimidating. But over the years, I've seen so many people recommending this, the most prominent of those being Claire Fenby, who was especially urging me to read this because of the fact that it's set in York, or at least I think it is partially set in York. I think we're looking at a guild of magicians and a rivalry particularly between Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I just think this will be a really good one to take home with me for Christmas and to just sit on the sofa and devour. One of the books that I have on my TBR that actually isn't published yet, I have in proof form, is Read Yourself Happy by Daisy Buchanan, How to Use Books to Ease Your Anxiety. So you might know that I actually work in the publishing industry. I work in the publicity department of the academic publisher that I work for, and we were invited to a Christmas party which was hosted by the PPC, the Publishers Publicity Circle. And at the party there was a table full of these proofs, and so I had to snatch it up. Daisy Buchanan is an author. You may also know her as a podcast host for the podcast You're Booked. I don't really know her as an author. I think this might be her first non-fiction, but as you can tell from the title, it is a book about books, about the importance of reading, and particularly books and their influence on your emotions and your mental health. So far I've read the introduction of this and it seems really lovely so far. Definitely looking forward to reading more of this. Next up we've got a historical fiction centering on the Tudor court, and it is Dissolution by C J Sansom, the first book in the Matthew Shardlake series. This is part historical fiction, part crime mystery, with Matthew Shardlake being an associate of Thomas Cromwell and being tasked to look into a murder. Now, because of the more crime mystery element of this, I had never been particularly drawn to it, but I have heard a lot of fervent recommendations. Obviously the TV show came out earlier this year, and so I am definitely giving into the hype, and I am just very curious to see what I think of this. The final book that is on my physical TBR is The Dead of Winter, The Demons, Witches and Ghosts of Christmas by Clegg. So this is one that I definitely want to get read in December because of the Christmas connotation. I previously have read Sarah Clegg's Woman's Law, which was looking at sirens, serpents and succubi, how historical attitudes towards demonic women have had a lot to say about society's general treatment of women, what is deemed to be a good woman, an evil woman, what society wants women to feel. And so now we've got a similar thing, demonic creatures, but those associated with Christmas, which is meant to be the most wonderful time of the year, but here we're looking at the darker, grisly side. So now going into books that I do not have physical copies of, but am quite keen to pick up. The most pressing of those being the fact that the paperback release of Mary the First Queen of Sorrows by Alison Weir will be coming out in January, and I am so excited to read this and to continue on with Alison Weir's historical fiction. You will have seen my videos talking about the Six Tudor Queens series, as well as the fact that I've read the first two books in her Tudor Roses series, which started with Elizabeth of York, the mother of Henry VIII. It then followed down the generation to Henry VIII himself, and now we're looking at Henry VIII's first daughter, Mary I, known to many now as Bloody Mary, due to her persecution of Protestants during her reign. But is that moniker really warranted? What I'm hoping for is that Alison Weir is going to give us a really balanced perspective on Mary. I think because of that moniker, it's really easy to forget how tragic her life just generally was, not just her youth, but her queenship was fraught with issues. But that is definitely not to downplay any of the horrible things about her reign and the persecution. I'm interested to see how sympathetic Alison Weir is able to make Mary, because, you know, it's a hard balancing act. I think she was able to work very well with Henry VIII, who, once again, not a very sympathetic figure in history, but definitely a compelling person, an engaging, charismatic person. You definitely understand when you're reading Alison Weir's fiction why it is that so many people are drawn to him. Whereas with Mary I, she kind of has the opposite issue in that she isn't a particularly pleasant person. She doesn't come across as somebody that people want to spend lots of time with, that she isn't particularly charismatic. But you, as an author, have to kind of get people on her side, because otherwise the book isn't going to work. You need to get the audience to root for this character, at least at the beginning, so that when things do start to deteriorate, it seems tragic rather than just seeing a villain arc. And yeah, I'm really keen to see what she makes of this. Staying with the past, but now jumping over to history non-fiction, we have Henry V, The Astonishing Rise of England's Greatest Warrior King by Dan Jones. I really enjoyed Dan Jones as a writer. Most recently, I have read the first two books in his Essex Dog series and really enjoyed them, but he is probably best known for his non-fiction, which I haven't read extensively. I have just read Magna Carta and Power and Thrones, but I really really enjoyed those. I think he does such a good balance of writing popular histories but that are very grounded in their historical period, accessible but still rigorous, and that's what I'm definitely hoping for with this biography of Henry V. Something I really liked about his historical fiction and his depiction of men at war was, despite my fears of it being very glorifying of war, it really wasn't. He was very down to earth, very realistic about the brutality, and so that's what I'm hoping for with his treatment of Henry V. It is very easy to glorify this man, and it is very easy to be swept away with this greatest warrior king title, but how effective was he as an actual ruler of a nation as opposed to a leader of an army? I would personally say mixed results, but once again, as with Alison Weir, I do trust Dan Jones to be pretty balanced, to be able to mix the good with the bad. Next up, we're staying with history non-fiction and talking about a time period that I don't really know a whole lot about, but it's from an author that I really admire, and it is 1217, The Battles That Saved England by Catherine Hanley. Now, Catherine Hanley is author of one of my favourite biographies of all time, Matilda, Empress, Queen, Warrior, which was all about Empress Matilda. She also previously wrote Two Houses, Two Kingdoms, A History of France and England between 1100 to 1300. So a book about the specific year of 1217 is definitely in her wheelhouse. But I will say the 13th century is definitely a little bit of a blind spot for me in terms of English history. You know, I'm kind of on level ground around the 12th century, then my knowledge kind of does fizzle out a little bit until the 15th century. Then we get to the Wars of the Roses, I'm on surer footing. And then of course we get to the Tudors and I'm very happy. But yeah, 13th, 14th century, with the exception of the Black Death, shaky ground for me. You know, I know little pockets here and there like Magna Carta, the rocky relationship between Isabella of France and Edward II. But yeah, there are large swathes of years where I'm just kind of like, who knows what's happening there? So yeah, I am just trusting Catherine Hanley to take me on this journey. I'm just going to enjoy her writing and teaching me about a time period that I don't know a lot about. Next up, we have a book that is a repeat offender on my seasonal TBR, because I really should have read this by now, and it is Hera by Jennifer Saint. You know, we can't get through one of these videos without a Greek myth retelling, and this is one that has been most pressing for me to read, and I don't know why I haven't done it yet. Jennifer Saint, I started off by reading Ariadne, and to be honest with you, I wasn't very fussed on it. It's not one of my favourite Greek myth retellings. So I, with a bit of a skeptical heart, read Electra and was really blown away by it. I was really pleasantly surprised. I read Atalanta a couple of years ago and really enjoyed that. And so when I found out she had a book focused on Hera, the Queen of the Gods, that really intrigued me. So I'm hoping for very good things with this. And then to finish off my winter TBR, I have 2 romance books because, you know, it's a gloomy time. I need a little bit of joy and happiness in my life. And speaking of joy and happiness, I've spoken about this in an anticipated releases video. It's now out in the world and I have made a reservation at my library on it. At some point in the next couple of months, I need to read Under Lock and Key by Lana Ferguson, which, for those of you who may have forgotten, is a romance. I believe it is an American tourist coming to learn more about her Scottish roots, but along the way she falls in love with a man and we discover his secret, that he is man by day and Nessie by night. Yes, indeed, he is a shapeshifter who turns into the Loch Ness Monster. Beautiful, perfect, no notes, have to read it. You know what, my reading can't all be serious history, demons, dissolution and anxiety. Sometimes we just need a little touch of monster romance. I feel like this is the very furthest into that genre that I can probably abide. You know, supernatural romance, never been my thing. But this just feels like it is silly enough and doesn't take itself too seriously that I might really enjoy it. Funnily enough, the last book on this list and the second romance, another watery twist to it, and it is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I have so far read everything that Ali Hazelwood has put out, and I've only not gotten on board with one of her books, which was Bride, which makes sense considering this is her first more supernatural romance. It was a romance between a vampire and a werewolf, and it just didn't do anything for me, but all of her contemporary romances that are between, you know, 2 humans, I've really enjoyed. And here is a romance between 2 swimmers who I believe are on track to compete in the Olympics, but when they start to fall for each other, pressure from all sides starts to come closing in. They're keeping their relationship a secret. You know, all good things, all wonderful tropes of the romance genre that I've come to love. And yeah, I'm hoping with this one, it's a new Ali Hazelwood that I will really enjoy. So there we go, that is just a little sample of some of the books that I am looking forward to reading in December, January and February. Do let me know if you've read any of the books that I've spoken about today and what your thoughts were on them. Alternatively, please let me know what you're looking forward to reading in the winter. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.